BRUCAST is back, baby.
When you have a disorder, such as ADHD or autism, it's like, okay, you can be focusing all the time on what your weaknesses are, but this just really can create a negative self-image. So, therefore, occasionally it should also be quite important to ask yourself what your strengths are, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, otherwise your self-esteem just goes
yeah.
down the hill. So it is people think they have ADHD a lot nowadays, if I understood correctly, because their attention span is going down because of social media and
Yeah.
stuff. That's why everyone thinks they have ADHD. How can people snap out of it and see that they don't have ADHD? Is there an easy way to confirm, okay, I don't have ADHD, it's just my attention span that's low?
Well, so, I mean, there are screening tests online. You can do some tests online and they say, okay, it is unlikely that you have ADHD. It is a little bit likely, or it is very likely that you have ADHD as a result. And this should help as a first orientation. And with getting really clear on it, sometimes you have to get diagnosed. And specifically, sometimes if people are older, it's sometimes really tough to see because oftentimes people with ADHD that are a little bit older, they have found mechanisms to work against it. So,
Like
for example,
what?
for me, yeah, I mean, the fidgeting with the arm is quite common, you know, like you fidget with your leg, or you just force yourself really hard to do something, but you just have to put in much more effort because one has ADHD. And you cannot see it so much more on the outside, but it's rather something on the inside. It has gotten to the point that there's a NGO like ADHD International, I think, if I recall it correctly, and they have head of the organization who's a medical doctor, and he has an assistant who's also a medical doctor, and they worked together for like 5 years, and the head of the NGO did not realize that his assistant had ADHD all the time, even though they work at the biggest ADHD NGO worldwide, you know.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah.
All right. It was just in front of him and never noticed. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, coming back to your question about how people can snap out of it, I would probably say do a screening test online and then you know better, you know? Because oftentimes what people do when they hear a certain disorder, and this applies to everything with mental health, you know, not only ADHD. They have one behavioral tendency and they think, okay, this behavioral tendency is very common in ADHD, for example. And then they think, oh, I have this behavioral tendency and it's very strong and I must have ADHD for that reason. But oftentimes when you have a diagnosis like ADHD, you have a lot of different behavioral patterns that have to be fulfilled. It's not only one. And the reason that you are doing something, it can be attributed to so many things, you know? So
That's why it's important to be diagnosed.
Yeah, to be diagnosed and also see a lot of different factors being summarized. Like it's about, if you have ADHD, it's not one behavior, but it's about 70 behaviors.
Whew.
You know,
70.
So-
It can get that high? Up to 70?
I mean, at least this is what you statistically need in order to make a judgment. So in Germany, when you do the screening test, you get like 100 questions, if I remember correctly. So 100 questions about how you behave in certain situations, and then they make a judgment. And this is just an example of how complex it is. So in all of Cologne, there are 2 doctors who can do the diagnoses. And there's a lot of controversy about it, like you said, with attention span in general. But yeah, like I said, it's about attention span overall just declining in humanity, and